Hi, and welcome to the Mentor Minute. I am your host, Tim J.M. Rohrer, and I hope you're doing great today. I received a submission from David from Detroit, who's got a problem that he would like to talk about. I invited him to be on the show, but he declined, saying he did not want to be on camera because he was not telegenic enough. Something about eyebrows that are misaligned and a crooked smile. Well, David, people probably wouldn't notice unless you pointed these things out. But for now, we'll just let it slide and we will still address your problem. So David told me that he has a salesperson who is quite good, really typically in the top 10% of all salespeople in the company, and certainly in his division, one of the very best salespeople. But this salesperson is not good at entering their activity into Salesforce. Salesforce, as most of you know, is a customer relationship management software program, a CRM, into which salespeople enter notes and other activities so that they can remember what's happened so far during the process of trying to move the customer towards closing. And also not just for them, but so that other people in the company can also see what's going on with an account. There's been a movement lately, probably over the last several years, for executives and leadership to insist that salespeople enter all their activity into CRMs so that they can measure the activity and then draw some correlation between activity and results. And apparently David's salesperson is not entering his activity. So I wanted to do what a good mentor will do, and I wanted to clarify. So I asked David, is this the only problem? Is this person really good? And this is the only problem. And David said, well, this person's not very good at administration. So when there's mandatory training, this person needs several reminders. When it comes to activity in a CRM, they don't do it. They need several reminders. And there's a couple of other administrative things that this person's not always so great at, maybe expense reports and that kind of thing. But when it comes to selling, David's person is one of the top sellers and produces a lot of revenue, and his customers love him. So after I was done clarifying, I asked some coaching questions. I said, well, David, what sort of things have you tried? See, what David has done is sent a bunch of reminders in different forms to try to get this person to do activity. David has also tried to express the value of doing activity in the CRM, but it's all fallen on deaf ears. So I asked David, well, what could you do differently? David had to think about that. And after a couple minutes of thinking, he wasn't sure what to do. So then it was my job as the mentor to try to make some suggestions. And I do have some suggestions because I've been doing this a long time and I've seen this problem before. And if you're a mentor, then you have seen things before as well. And after clarifying and asking coaching questions, you might still have to offer some suggestions if the person you're coaching has not come to their own conclusions. So in this particular case, I asked David if other people on his sales staff were good at everything related to sales. He said, oh, no, not at all. He says, some people are really not good at putting together presentation decks. I said, oh, well, what do you do for them? He said, well, we have an assistant who's really good at that, and that they get help. I said, oh, well, that sounds like a really good workaround for people who have trouble making presentations. What else? He says, some people are really good at developing relationships, but for whatever reason, they can't close business. I said, well, what do you do for those people? He says, well, typically I'll go out with them when it comes time to closing deals, and I'll help get things over the finish line. I said, oh, so you have a workaround for people who aren't good at closing? He said, yeah. I said, you need a workaround for people who are not good at administration. You probably meet with this person weekly to go over their forecast or to have other conversations related to a one-on-one performance discussion. David said, yeah. I said, so during that one-on-one, do you ask about the activity? And he says, yeah. I said, well, what would prevent you from typing notes into the CRM while you had this one-on-one? He said, well, I guess nothing. I said, and if you didn't want to type them in, maybe you could have an assistant present during the one-on-ones, and that person could type it into the CRM. He said, I guess I could do that. I said, okay, so why don't you go do that? So after clarifying and coaching, I provided some wisdom that in this case was simply a workaround for a very good salesperson who's not very good at administration. And that is the Mentor Minute for today. Let's get after it.